my daughter. She gets hit, and they say, all right, here's the hire car. Your excess is £1,000. If you pay £40, right, we can lower the excess to what it is on your policy. She pays the £40. So she gets back round the loop, and they say, oh, you can't claim that back because it's involved with this. So then she decides to go through the legal system. Do you know how much that costs to get back? She got a £40 back cheque, but it cost over £1,000 to get the £40 back. Your supply chain is sick.
Well, there's a challenge, Rob. Rob, you've obviously, according to Professor Wilding, have a very sick supply chain. How sick is your supply chain?
Well, we know it is. We can see by the amount of waste in the industry, by the amount of time it takes to do stuff, by the disparate experience that customers will have when they go through various parts of our supply chain. If you think the NHS has got a postcode lottery, you should try the insurance and the repair industry especially, because you can be very lucky, unlucky or very lucky depending on what postcode is allocated. I was fascinated earlier when you said email is dead. Half the people in this audience are still getting faxes with their jobs on. Yeah, we have faxes. I bet you don't believe that.
No, I haven't even got one on my business card anymore.
Well, there you go. We still love them. So, yeah, we know this, but there are organisations, there are people who are thinking differently, there are different people coming into the business, there are people taking risks, there are people investing, and I think they will prosper.
But the bottom line is that what you're having to actually think through, that how does this create value for me? It gives me, I mean, when we actually look at customer value, one of the things that you're having to deal with is what are actually the benefits which somebody is getting, but also they're offsetting that against risks, okay? So the risks are often, associated with various things, and this is where I think it's quite surprising with with your industry, is that you haven't thought about how we actually innovate. So if you look at a mobile phone company now, we've just seen 3 there doing their promotion, but what you're actually finding is that companies are doing associated add-on deals because they know that what's happening is their product is commoditized.
Correct.
Your product is becoming commoditized. So therefore, Orange with, Orange Wednesdays in the cinema. What they're doing is they're building relationships with other people to make it more interesting. So here's a mad idea. Why don't I get Netflix with my insurance? So that you've got to pay for this and all the rest of it. Here, have Netflix for a year as part of the insurance policy, so you can enjoy your life a little bit more. And then when we make a claim, we're going to make it more interesting. It's thinking about how we position that value offering.
I don't necessarily think it makes it complicated, and I actually don't think giving away Netflix is going to make your claim any better as an experience, because you don't want to have a claim. So I'm not going to say I've had a claim but I watched some good films. So I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but I think the point about the disparate nature of the supply chain, I actually think it's a testament to all of the parties that are involved in it today, the claims managers, the claims handlers, all of the parts of the supply chain. It actually goes pretty well most of the time, and yes, it could be joined together better. And I do agree that customers choose to purchase their insurance via different methods. Andy talked about distribution, but that doesn't necessarily change what your feeling is going to be when you make a claim. So if I choose to buy my insurance from an aggregator and I use my tablet and I do that, maybe that's how I want to handle my claim. If I go to a broker in the high street and I buy my insurance there because I like to interact with someone, because I want things explained to me and I want that advice, that's probably how I want to handle my claim. And I actually think it's about recognising the different habits of different consumers at that point of claim and giving them the choice so their claim is handled in the way they want. That might not be the DPD app, but it might be that I want to sit in front of a person in a shop. And
Rob, isn't that exactly the way that Ageas works? And you ask people is to listen to what the customer wants and treat them as individuals rather than meeting a series of SLAs?
Yes, we don't. Famously, we don't have KPIs and such things in our business. And Andy used the magic word predicament. We ask the customer, what is important to you now? And then we deal with what that answer is.
But how do you manage to keep a control on costs? Because that is very important.
No, because by doing that, actually, you're driving out all of the failure demand, as we call it, that potentially comes in when you're dealing with a customer that's either disgruntled or doesn't understand what's going to happen to them or is being let down. All of that creates costs. Actually, if you drive all of that failure out of your business, you find very quickly that your processes are slicker, work better for the customer, and there's less attrition in that kind of process. And that's why Ageas
Because attrition costs money.
Yeah, that's why we've got, by some margin, the most efficient claim service in terms of its cost in the UK. The insurance industry gets a lot of shtick, and it's getting it here for not innovating. When you've got a compulsory policy, like a motor insurance policy, about 55% of its design is dictated by law. So there are a certain number of things that need to be in there and have to be in there and are there to protect the legal rights of the people who have been damaged by either you in your car or you by someone else. So let's not forget there's a certain amount of stuff that we just have to do. And when there is a legal requirement, there are certain loops, sort of hoops and loopholes that you have to jump through. So it's all very well to sort of look from outside and pitch stones in and say you can do this, that, and another better. Sometimes there's a very good reason for doing something, or it may not be a good reason, it's just what you have to do.
It's a legal reason for doing it.
It's a legal reason.
Yeah.
What is marketed to me as a consumer? What am I seeing all the time? I'm seeing cost being pushed at me. So you get a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when I go to renew my insurance, what is the thing I'm thinking about? Cost. So therefore, I'm going to try and get cost out. Yeah? And the same has happened in third-party logistics providers. They've been going into negotiations with big companies and they talk about cost. What you have to do is break that cycle and start thinking about value. How can we actually create values? So I think the thing which I'm really trying to think through, and I think this thing is, from that insurance product, how can you play around with that 45% of other stuff to actually create value? There will be a time when I have to make a claim, and of course I want that done well as a consumer, but how can I actually get additional interactions with that consumer and actually get them, feeling good about insurance?
The point of today's subject is about how do we add value as a supply chain. So I think if insurers and the principals, if you like, are willing to invest in their supply chain and work with them, you can then create value because you can integrate, you can remove some of the waste, you can remove the duplication. So I think that's happening today. I think there's a slightly negative slant that it's a completely broken system. I think actually it's a very much evolving system. There's not going to be a revolution that's going to improve the supply chain, but it's going to evolve to that. But I think a lot of the value that can be created in supply is not necessarily about something front end, like adding £20 to have a car hire bolt-on.
Rob, you were shaking your head vigorously in disagreeing that people will pay £20 extra, I think.
Talking in segments.
Richard's got something.
This is the key thing. I mean, if your wife's car, you might be doing something else. After my experience, I'd love to have something better than a Ford Fiesta.
Can I interject?
So what?
No, because I'm going to let Rob go and then you.
Yeah.
So Rob first, then Steve.
Well, thank you. Look, let's not kid ourselves here. It's very easy to use Orange Wednesdays and stuff from other products where people actually want to consume the product. They relate with it on a day-to-day basis and all that sort of stuff. At the risk of sounding like an old-timer, I've been in insurance long enough now to realise that there is, whether we like it or not, one thing that the consumer wants out of their insurance policy, and that is a cheap price. They never look at the things that go with it. I bet you didn't know that you were going to get a Ford Fiesta in your policy when you had a non-fault accident, but that's the product you bought.
Yeah.
You don't walk into a BMW showroom and buy, and be surprised when the BMW comes with only 3 wheels. You expect one with 4 wheels. You need to read the specification. Nobody reads the specification, and that's just where we are. So let's all stop sort of worrying about how terrible this is and how Ageas makes money and it sells motor policies at one of the lowest policy rates in the business. Yet we make money. Why? Because we concentrate on the customer, we concentrate on being as efficient as possible, and we concentrate on doing what we do as well as possible. Now, there's an awful lot of waste and people in our industry who still aren't optimizing actually what they do. Forget innovation. Do what you're bloody supposed to do properly first time before we get to innovation.
Yeah.
We're a long way off in this industry innovating. We don't do what we're supposed to do properly now. We still take an age to fix cars. We still have a strange difference between a car who was at fault for an accident can be fixed in 2 days and a car that was non-fault for an accident taking 16 days. Yeah. Please explain that to me.